Contrast is a collaborative work, a podcast fully produced and hosted by the officers and residents of the Idaho Correctional Institution in Orofino.
Welcome to Contrast. Today's episode, we have our guest, Joe Howell. With us on this podcast is Warden Carlin, Dave.
That's me.
And myself, Lieutenant Brian Craig. I'll be filling in for Deputy Warden Kent Shriver.
Perfect.
All right.
So let's just get into the meat and potatoes of this. So, Joe, you are here visiting. You spent some time this morning down in the school, correct?
I did. It was impressive.
Listen, Boise, figure this out. You need to follow us more often. So I'm super excited. I really haven't had a chance to look at your background, Joe, but I do know that you, in the short amount of time that we had an opportunity to speak today, you shared with me that you have been incarcerated in the past.
I have.
And you are now kind of paying it forward, in a sense, giving back to this community. Is that my understanding of kind of what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so why don't we just kind of turn this over to you? You tell us your story, and then towards the end, I'm sure we're going to have lots of questions. So
Okay.
It's all yours.
Well, so in 1999, I got a felony for delivery of a controlled substance, and I was an 18-year-old kid, first adult felony, and I was fortunate enough I got a rider, and I went to Cottonwood and did the boot camp thing, and I had a really cool case manager. His name was Terry Fulks. I don't know if anyone remembers him, but he found a way to get me to a CRC on my rider.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was
That's a very abnormal, especially back then.
I was really impressive, I guess. But somehow I got to go to a CRC, and I ended up back in Boise, and I got to finish my rider there, and I got out, and I was telemarketing, selling tools. And over the years, I thought I was smarter than everyone I worked for, and I failed a lot at business. I failed at call center after call center after call center because I was a kid and I didn't understand taxes, and there's all kinds of stuff that goes with running a business that you don't understand when you're 21, 22, 23 years old.
Yeah, I could imagine.
And I don't know, I made some other bad decisions and violated probation. I got to go on a second rider, and that was interesting. And I don't know, I just kept sticking with telemarketing and made a good living, and ultimately I went to prison one last time, and I was done. In 2006, I was sitting in RDU, and there was a lot of old timers in there, and I saw my future if I didn't change what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I got out, and I opened a call center because it was 2008, and telemarketing's what I do. And unfortunately, there were no jobs for anyone, and it worked out well for me. I got to hire all of us that were looking for jobs in a jobless market, and that's how it really took off.
Okay.
Wow.
So I have a question for you, just for some clarification. When you did go back into prison, as they say, did you get any new crimes, or were they just violations?
They were just violations. If I got new crimes, they were generally a misdemeanor.
Okay.
So you seem to be different than a lot of people. A lot of people, when they're incarcerated, they seem to slide backwards. But for you, it seems like it propelled you forward. What do you think it is that made you different than a lot of people that are never seem to be able to pull themselves out of the hole of correction or incarceration?
I don't really know. I don't even know how to answer that question. I wake up every day, and I feel so fortunate to be where I'm at, and I don't know. I took every chance at, when I was incarcerated. It was like a great reset for me. I never had that much sobriety put together at a moment of time, and I could really put my thoughts together, and I don't know. It was a good thing for me. Correction saved my life.
Oh, that's great, yeah. You mentioned you had somebody that gave you an opportunity to take a different path than a lot of people are able to, going from rider to CWC, which is so that people don't know, it's like a work center for inmates, so that when you get to a medium custody level, you're able to work in the community.
Minimum.
Yeah. You get to minimum custody, yeah. So you're afforded an opportunity there. So maybe that has something to do with it,
Yeah, I don't know. I got to Cottonwood, and everyone was all about, sneaking around and bartering commissary and all that type of stuff. And I don't know. I dug myself into self-help books because I didn't really like where I was at, and I knew that I was the reason that I was there. I just didn't know what was wrong with me. So I dug, and it was good. It was a really good thing for me.
That's great.
I'm going to dig a little bit further. Would you say that, how young were you when you started using drugs or alcohol? Is that seems to be kind of what led you to incarceration?
Yeah, I was 14 years old.
Okay.
I think when I started smoking marijuana.
Okay. And that kind of led you to, I apologize, your felony was what again?
It was delivery. It was for cocaine.
Delivery. Okay. So you went from smoking marijuana to delivering cocaine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And there's people in this world that that's a pretty big deal, escalating to cocaine. And the reason I say that is I've never even smoked marijuana. So for me, that's a pretty big deal. So it shows that it's not uncommon for people to end up incarcerated due to substance abuse issues that sometimes start at a very young age. And so it sounds to me like you were really lucky, though, when you were 18 and you came into the system, that one, you had somebody that recognized that you had a lot of potential within the system, Terry Folks.
Yeah.
And he helped you. And even when you came back in, so when you first came through the Rider program, it was a drill instructor program, a boot camp program.
Yeah.
And when you would have come back in 2004, that would have gone away.
New Directions.
It was New Directions and more of a community model at the time, where they were starting to work on a rewards type of system. So I'm interested in knowing your perspective on those two different programs and how did they work differently? Did you see that one worked better than the other? I'm just curious because I know from my perspective, I didn't feel like the drill instructor or the boot camp program was beneficial for any form of rehabilitation. But I felt like the community model was better when we were looking at rehabilitation, but it still lacked in a lot of areas. So I'd like to know from your perspective what your takeaway was from those two different programs. I'm going to make you think. Sorry.
I think programming is programming.
Okay.
And when a person's ready, they're gonna take the programming in. And when I did the boot camp, I was kind of ready. Back in 2004, and I did the New Directions. I was probably more immature than I was when I was 18 from the progression of my drug use and bad choices. But I don't know. When I was 26, in 2006 when I went back, all that programming that I got from both of those visits all came into play. I retained a lot of that information, and it's still stuff that I remember today, like thinking errors, and nobody even knows about anymore that I don't think anyone uses. But there are so many different things that I was able to pull from all of those experiences. So I can't say whether one was more effective or ineffective.
And that's something that I've always discovered, when somebody's ready to make that change, when they're ready to be that sponge, they're going to soak up whatever information that is really valid to them in that season of their life is kind of how I like to term it. And so it's good to hear that we can impact people and not even know it. And so we just need to continue giving people those opportunities.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So what have you done since you got out? And you said you started a call center.
Yeah. So I had Ace Industrial going pretty strong in Boise, and we had a small office that's going in Post Falls. It's still doing strong. The office in Boise, it's getting a little bit smaller, but they're still going. And I've stepped back. All I do is housing. I think I have 8 or 9 houses right now.
Yeah, that's really interesting to me, is that you started halfway houses.
It was an accident.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had these people working in my office at Ace Industrial, and they were working, and they were at the CRC. So they would tell me about how bad the halfway houses were, and I never had to live in one, so I didn't know. But I would hear all these stories, and they were getting ready to get out. And before they'd gone in, they'd lived in a halfway house together. And they were telling me how they kept it really cool, and it almost sounded like a sober fraternity house, the way they described it to me. Yeah. So it made me want to go buy a house, and I found the biggest piece of junk I could find. And I bought it really cheap, and we remodeled it. And, you know, I had to have everyone have their own room, and I was going to make it the best. And I put in flat screen TVs. I really outdid myself on it on a budget. And then my phone wouldn't quit ringing, so I just had to keep buying houses. And here we are.
So how many do you have now?
I think I have 8 or 9. I have a couple that are in construction right now.
Okay. Are they mostly all located in the Boise Valley, Boise area?
They are. I have all of them. It's in the bench location of Boise. It's an 83705 zip code. And then I have one that's in Meridian.
Okay.
How many inmates or they're not inmates, what are they, residents, I suppose?
Yeah, residents.
Yeah.
So I have, I think, 45 or 46 rooms right now, but I have a house that's coming online soon that'll be 8 bedrooms, and then one of my 5 bedrooms will go through a conversion. It will be 8 bedrooms.
Wow. I was told that yours are different than the other halfway houses, that you take a different approach. What is that? What makes you different than the other halfway
It sounds
houses?
like you have a different vision. So share with us what that is.
Well, so the other halfway houses, you know, they do serve a purpose, and that, you know, they give you a spot to go to when you get out, but you really need to have your own space.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, you have enough rules with probation and parole and all of that. You don't need another babysitter. And I don't really want to be your babysitter. I just want to rent you a good room and give you a good place. So that's what I do. I buy kind of junky houses, and I started a little construction company. It gives me something to do, and I remodel the houses. We make them nice, put in granite countertops, you know, tile them, make them, you know, have nice finishes like you or I would have in our homes. Because I don't think that just because someone's been to prison that they should have to live somewhere less than I do.
What kind of rules or expectations do you have for your residents?
Really, I have a list of, I think, 13 or 14 rules, but it's as simple as, you know, pay me, don't do drugs or alcohol. You got to get along with your roommates and, you know, clean up after yourself. If you see something messy, clean it up. Take care of my property like it's yours.
That sounds like the honor unit.
Right?
That's exactly what one of the things that we're really focusing on, especially on our honor unit. And my vision is that we teach these guys, that especially the ones living on the honor unit, that your community is wherever you are. And it's important for you to take pride in your community. And we teach how to basically pay it forward, but to also take pride in where you're at in that moment. And so your community is on whatever housing unit you live on, or if you're in a halfway house, that's going to be your community. And so you should be taking care of it as though it's your own. So it sounds to me like that's kind of the philosophy that you have is take care of this and take pride in what you have.
Absolutely. And, you know, I do some other things, like most of the halfway houses, they have a list, you know, it's your week to mow the lawn or whatnot. And when I started doing this, I was like, I don't want to be mad because you had to work and you didn't mow my lawn. So I pay for lawn maintenance, pest control, like all those kinds of outside services that, you know, I would take care of at my own home.
Yeah.
I know I can't depend on my tenants to take care of it because, you know, everyone's busy trying to build themselves a life and hopefully get out of my housing.
Yeah.
That'd be my question. What kind of length of stay do you see? What's kind of an average?
It's all over the place. 6 months to 2 years. My first tenant ever still rents from me today. He lives in a little apartment that I own. And I got my real estate license in December because I was buying so much real estate. It just made sense. And I'm helping him. We're going to find him a home to buy.
Nice.
Very cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does that feel to be able to sit back and be a part of and to watch people grow and change and kind of pull themselves out the same way you have and cheer them on in their own success?
I love it. That's why I do this.
Yeah.
You know, if I can watch somebody, I got a guy who came to me about a year ago from a federal facility. He came to me with a duffel bag, and he had to buy an air mattress. And today he's got 2 cars, he's got a scooter, he's got a dirt bike. And he's only been out a year, but it's great. I'm watching him, move forward, and maybe he's going to start a business in the next 6 months.
Yeah, that's great. I love to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys, a lot of them, they thank me and they attribute me to their success, but all I did was give them somewhere to live. They did all the heavy lifting and all the work.
Yeah. Well, sometimes they just need somebody to just cheer them on.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
Someone to believe in us.
Believe in.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
What kind of resources do you have down there that you're partnered with to help operate and facilitate these homes?
I use all of my own funding. I don't work with any other agencies in regards to that. But I work with U.S. Probation, with their clients, and then with IDOC with their clients.
So you said that you also have employment opportunities through your different businesses that you own. Mm-hmm. About how many jobs are you providing to the community?
So in my my heydays of telemarketing, we had anywhere from 25 to 40 people employed. Now that I'm not so hands-on with the telemarketing, I'm really all the way out of it. I can send referrals there, and people can get hired there. I've got a handful of subcontractors that I use through my construction company that they're always hiring. So I have a lot of resources for job placement, but it's not like something that I do regularly.
Okay. But just the fact that you have the ability to refer people, that's hugely beneficial to somebody getting out that has no idea where they're going to go and get a job.
Yeah. I have a huge network of subcontractors, and they're always all looking for people. And a lot of my subcontractors are guys like us that, started right here in a prison and got out, and they've lifted themselves up.
So you had a meeting earlier today down in the school.
I did.
And so some of our guys are working on a website for you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I can.
Perfect.
So, Joe's house, we started, in 2016, and it wasn't really a company. I started with a house and then another house. And just in the last year, I had to get an LLC and make it a legitimate business and, give myself a legitimate paycheck and make it a job, right?
Right.
So I needed a website for some legitimacy, and I bought a web domain, and we started playing with it. And I'm really grateful that the school downstairs, they've agreed to take on my project, and they're helping build me a website right now.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I've seen it, and it looks really good.
I would have no idea how to do that. So,
Oh, yeah, me neither.
so I'm excited that our guys get this opportunity to help you out.
Yeah, no, it's great. I struggle as it is with Microsoft Office. I wouldn't even know what to do.
I know, right?
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
So who's working on that do you remember any of the names of the guys?
Oh, I met so many guys today.
I know, it's
Yeah.
kind of hard. It's a little overwhelming.
It was a...
Do you know who it is?
Yeah, I
Dave?
think Pony Jackson.
Yes.
Owings
Okay.
and Mitch and one other.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just don't want to forget them because they're obviously working really hard.
Yeah,
and
no,
so
they're-
give them a
They're
plug.
doing a great job. There were 6 or 7 of us sitting in there, and just all the ideas that were coming, there were great ideas that were coming out of everywhere.
And this is just one of many really neat projects that's going on down in the school. And so I can't thank the education staff and Deputy Warden Shriver who supports all of these projects and just giving these opportunities for the guys to fill their day with something productive, even though they're incarcerated. And it gives them some skills to learn and glean for when they do finally get out.
What I really like about it is they're building a website for them. It's
Yep.
something that
Yeah.
they're going to use. They know the questions that they have. I made a website with some frequently asked questions, and they're not relevant. I don't know what questions you guys have.
Yeah. And I think it's pretty cool too that it's like filling gaps,
Mm-hmm.
The Department of Corrections here is helping you, which is helping them in the end, you know what I mean? So it's everybody's helping each other here. That's pretty cool. It's like everybody's paying it forward in a way.
I never ever thought, if 15 years ago, you would have told me that I'd be sitting here with a warden inside of a prison and doing all of this and working with you guys. I would have told you were crazy.
The system's changing. And
Absolutely.
it's either get on board or you're going to get left behind, from what I can tell.
Right.
Well, and there's been some great changes in the system. When I first got into the system, it felt like it was cops and robbers, and they were out to catch us. And
absolutely.
now everyone wants to help, and we all work together.
Yeah.
It's really refreshing. It's cool.
Very good.
It's funny that you say that because I can remember the first time that I transferred to Cottonwood, and I had been here for a really long time, and I've always just been one of those people that can communicate pretty well. I've never been super black and white, even as a correctional officer. Held people to the rules, but when I went to Cottonwood and they were just coming out of their boot camp system and into the New Directions community model, everybody thought I was just this novelty because I would communicate with, at the time we called them inmates. And so I love that we are headed in the direction that we are. It's really near and dear to my heart. And I think that our facility is far progressive compared to a lot of facilities, even in the state of Idaho. But I find it interesting that even from your perspective, you're starting to see that as well. But I think with that change has also come a change in attitude with our communities and people that have been able to get out and are now what I call paying it forward, meaning you're helping the guys that could have been there while you first came in, or you kind of remind you of you when you were that age. So I think it's awesome. I'm excited to have this opportunity to interview you and just kind of get your perspective on things.
Yeah, no, I love it. Any of us is only one bad decision from ever ending up in one of these places.
Yeah.
Every day I have to think about that still. It's only one bad decision from coming back to right here.
Absolutely.
So have you had any support from the community? What's their reaction? Have you had any pushback or?
On the housing?
Yeah, on your housing.
So, I kind of just keep my head down and just do my thing, and I don't get a lot of heat from the community. But recently I did, and I have a neighbor that called the city and complained enough, and I tried to save a little bit of money, and I didn't get construction permits.
Oh.
And that came back to bite me, and then I found out that the property I was renovating, it's zoned commercially, so now I have to get a conditional use permit, and we're going through that process right now. I have my neighborhood community hearing, I think May 2nd, and hopefully they'll pass it through the zoning, and then we'll have 8 more bedrooms coming out soon.
So you're still learning as well through this process.
Yeah, I'm learning a lot. I never knew anything about zoning or, you see those big signs and they say public hearing notice, and you drive past them and don't think too much about them.
Right.
Well, now I have to get one, and I'm learning a lot about the process.
Right. Good.
My thought was, every family's been touched by addiction or something in some way or another, and most people are pretty supportive of what I do. Mm-hmm. And I think I just found that one family who have a perfect family, have never been touched by addiction.
Wow.
Well, I think another part of that, from our philosophy as a facility, in creating that change in that environment for the residents here, the idea is that they're better in the community when they get out. That is really one of our sole purposes. Trima said a minute ago, the community also has to change. It's not just corrections. And I think in many ways they have, but we're not a perfect community either. You're going to find folks that don't want to live next to that place.
Yeah.
But if the world was right and the mission gets accomplished, they're going to see that these are men that are better, that they're hardworking, they're trying to repair their lives, and they're building a better future. And if we can continue to do what we're doing and they continue to do what they're doing, I think we can change those communities. It's going to take time.
Oh,
but
yeah.
We can get there.
I agree.
Yeah. I appreciate you doing it. I know from a a facility standpoint, it's hard to find housing for these guys, and you feel rotten about it. We want them to go and get out, but we got to have a place to put them. So,
well, and the problem is, a lot of the places that are your options, they're not good.
right,
We need more good housing, more people that really care instead of just about bottom dollar.
sure,
I've heard horror stories about halfway houses, and that's what I have heard is that yours is different, and that you're different than a lot of the bad stories that I've heard, because a lot of us we're kind of scared to be thrown into situations where people aren't cheering you on; they're trying to bring you down. And I've heard a lot of stories about halfway houses, which are not good, And so I appreciate the fact that you're willing to do what you do in a way that gives people a safe, comfortable way to, move forward in their lives,
Well, believe it or not, doing what I do, it helps me. I get to see your guys' successes and your guys' failures, and it always keeps it really, really fresh for me, where I've come from. It helps me probably more than it helps the people that I'm helping.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's what it's about, though. That's what life is about, is,
I refer to that, and I tell these guys, I want to be, and I want them to be, community activists when we have an opportunity, meaning we're going to be actively involved in making a better place for our children to live, more positive and more progressive, and breaking that cycle. And so I love what you're doing. I know that the whole idea of being a community activist was kind of thrust into a very negative light for a lot of years, but I think anytime you're being actively involved in improving your community, that's what you are, and I love it.
No, I think it's a lot of fun. I actually had the opportunity to work with the ACLU a couple of years back with Fair Chance Employment, getting that box taken off a job application so that you could get to an interview.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people that have felony backgrounds. I consider myself very employable, but I may not get an interview if I had to check that box.
sure.
And I talked before the legislature, and it was a lot of fun getting involved in that.
Wow.
Yeah, I encourage all of you to get involved any way you can, in that.
What you might not know is these guys right here started a program here called the Honor Unit. And what it is if you're doing well and you've got the right motivation and the right mindset and the right security situation, you can move on to a unit here which has all kinds of different opportunities that other units don't have, but there's expectations involved. And a lot of the expectations are community-minded. You got to contribute. You got to get off your bunk. You got to go to school. You got to go to work. You got to volunteer on the unit. You got to clean. You got to be pro-social. And it seems like your thing and their thing, it goes hand in hand. And it's part of community too. When you get out, you got to be a part of your community. You can't just sit there. You can't just any more than you could just sit here on this unit.
Right.
Or if you have a disagreement within your community, how do you act? How do you respond?
If you got a neighbor that wants to pull your permits,
Right.
or whatever,
Right.
yeah, how are you going to deal with that?
I run into that in my housing. People will come to me and they'll go, hey, I'm not getting along with this roommate of mine, or I'm having this issue. And I go, well, did you talk to your roommate about it? And their answer more often than not is no. And I go, well, I'm not going to come resolve your disputes. You're a grown man and he's a grown man. Go talk to him and see if you can work it out.
Yeah.
And most of the time that resolves the issue.
Yeah, and our honors unit is definitely it's an area where it's not about the rules. There's always rules in prison, and these guys are afforded the ability to make good decisions.
I like that. That's cool.
That's what we want them to do. We're not going to make them. We want them to do it, and we try to encourage them by role modeling that. Them role modeling each other. And I'll say in the 3 years, I think we've been doing it now, we've had very few disruptions in that. Very few. So few that I couldn't even tell you what they were.
Right.
Because it's a good program. You know, lights go out at a certain time of night in prison.
Mm-hmm.
Not here. They go out when they're ready.
Really?
Yep. But I'll tell you what, you show up at 11 o'clock at night on that unit, they're all asleep. Because they got to go to work in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
They got to go to school in the morning. They have to volunteer in the morning. They're responsible.
I like that.
We don't have to tell them to be responsible. These guys have all earned that. So we're very proud of that.
We've really pushed being solution-driven rather than problem-ran, I guess you could say. If you're going to have a problem and if you're going to reach the level of to take it to staff, you need to bring a solution with you. And so it's really important for people to learn how to communicate better so that, I guess in a sense, you're not wasting everybody's time because, like you said, if you're having an issue with your roommate, why aren't you talking to your roommate?
Right?
Yeah. So that's kind of the direction that we've really gone as well. And like Lieutenant Craig said, we've had very few issues. I don't even think you can count on one hand the number of guys that
You really can't.
have been removed for inappropriate behavior.
Yep.
Just
Two.
because they see the benefits to it.
2 or 3 maybe in
Yeah.
5 in 3 years.
Well, fundamentally, we all know the difference between right and wrong.
Right.
And given the opportunity to have maybe a little better environment to live in, you know, we might choose the right decisions to keep those privileges, right?
Yeah. And just
absolutely.
to do the right thing just because it's the right thing to do, you know. You got to get to a point in your life where you realize that, you know, life is just easier if you just do the right thing, you know. And that's really what life is about.
Mm-hmm.
We had a Sergeant Blandford who used to say that the residents on this unit he wants to treat them like a neighbor, not a number. And that will always stick with me, you know, and it reminds me a lot of what you do.
Well, I like that. You know,
That's pretty great, ain't it?
well, we're all going to get out of prison. 99% of us will
Yep.
get to go home and we're going to be someone's neighbor.
That's what I tell the community when I talk to them about, well, what they always ask, you're a warden, what do you do? Well, I train staff and I teach them that every one of these guys is going to get out. Very high number of these guys are going to get out. And they could be your neighbor or my neighbor. I have this story that I always talk about where I live pretty rural and I had a guy roll up with I think it was his girlfriend or somebody, into my driveway. And he asked my kids, hey, do you know where such and such place is? And my kids are like, I don't know. Mom! So I come outside and the guy says, oh, hey, Warden Carlin. Well, that's a giveaway, right? And so I'm like, well, hi, how are you? I remember your face, but I don't remember your name. Can you tell me what it is again? And he goes, yeah, it's such and such. And I said, well, it's really good to see you. What are you out doing? And he was looking for an address that was very close to mine. He was going to put a bid in to do a concrete job. Well, when my kids figured out who he was, they bailed into the house and it was like, that's a bad guy. And I was like, that is not the lesson I'm teaching my staff, let alone what I want my kids to know. And so that's been a long time ago. And since then, you know, there's been a lot of change. But that, to me, that was an even bigger eye opener that at any point in time I can run into people that are incarcerated. And I'm either creating a positive or a negative interaction by how I treat them here. And I want it to be just like that. Hey, Warden Carlin, I'm doing really well. This is where my life is leading me. That's what I want for an interaction. And so I think that the majority of my staff are headed down that same direction. So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's the majority of the restaurants, it's all ex-offenders in there and
Yep.
all the places that we go to. I mean, we're everywhere.
it's Idaho. Our mandatory sentencing guidelines are going to send a lot of people to prison, right? So
Yeah.
we need to get used to that. Well, we'd like to see some changes, but that's kind of outside of our control. So like you said, we're all one decision away from potentially being incarcerated. So let's give each other an opportunity. Well, do you have any last words that you would like to share
No,
before we close out?
I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to be able to come talk with all of you.
Appreciate having you.
Yeah, hopefully you found our facility and the community very beautiful. We're very rural. It's nice and green right now because it's spring, even though it was a little chilly the last couple days.
Super beautiful. The drive in this morning, I found myself pulling over and stopping at all the boat launches and looking at the river.
Nice. I do tell new people that come to stay here that there's very few facilities where you're going to see deer and turkeys and the occasional elk or bear or cougar, and you can look right outside and see a river flowing right past you. So I think we're pretty lucky where we're at. So.
Yeah, for being in prison, I mean, it's not...
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like camping, a little
right.
different.
Exactly. Well, thank you again, Joe. So we'll go ahead and close this up, and hopefully you travel safe getting back home.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
She's controlling the podcast again.